Well, the collector car market is really celebrated on this one day a year at Pebble Beach when it's sort of like the Olympics of cars, and it's a whole symphony of different kinds of cars from, cars from the late 1880s all the way to Formula One cars that were, just raced this last season. So we really celebrate all things cars and everything in between. And of course, you mentioned the beautiful cars from the 30s and the swoopy lines. Well, it's all going to be here very soon.
So how does a car get invited to the show? Because is it that the car gets invited, not necessarily the owners?
It's all about the cars. And, because we have about 250 cars on the field. And if you own a car that's really important, and let's say it's a part of our celebration this year, we're celebrating 100 years of Chrysler. We have Invictas, Morettis, believe it or not, 100 years of the Rolls-Royce Phantom, just that one mark of car. So if you own one of those cars and it's critical that we have it, that it's important to celebrate, that's one way to get invited.
Hey, I want to ask a little bit more too about, judging and how it all works. But I want to take a step back, Sandra, because this is something that has been around for a long time, started back in 1950. And I'm just curious why and how it came to be one of the most important and prestigious car shows really in the world.
Something that I think is really cool about the Pebble Beach Concours is that we're actually very dynamically organic. The event started in 1950, and to be honest, the Pebble Beach Concours was just a sideshow. The Pebble Beach road races that started in 1950, they were the star event. And after the road races finished, then it was kind of time to kick tires and take a look at cars. And in the very beginning at Pebble Beach, the cars were brand new. They were sports cars, from the 50s. And that kind of changed in 1955 when Phil Hill won with the Piercero, with an actual, antique car and not a brand new car. But Pebble Beach is all about celebrating everything automotive, racing, the style, even fashion. So I'm glad you got to see it once.
It was amazing. I have to say the whole event, you're just driving around the area and there's parades through the streets and it's just all kinds of cars. It was really, really, really beautiful and really amazing.
Sandra, I'm curious, how in general has the collector's market been right now? Because typically it's been pretty volatile.
Well, I think you've mentioned it's been volatile. It's kind of like any art market. Of course, it has ups and downs. And I would say we're seeing some generational shift, that a lot of the people that collected the cars from the 20s, 30s, and 40s are aging out of the hobby, and we're getting newer collectors who are maybe looking for things that are more relevant to their lifestyle or cars that they've seen on the road. So yeah, there is that generational shift. There's also the challenge of getting these cars restored. Many of the people that have worked on the cars, they're aging out as well, and there aren't as many people joining the ranks of restorers. Hannah wrote a great article today about how a car gets ready for Pebble Beach, and you can see that there's not as many people joining that profession that are leaving. So it's a great job to look for right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's in our weekend edition for Bloomberg, and she says, she says that jobs, and she talks about one individual in particular, are the most tedious in the classic car business, which by its very nature tends to attract a select few maniacally devoted artisans. But we see that in general. Like we talk about that, it's just not something we've seen certainly happening here in the United States. I love that you talked about, though, a younger generation, and it's another thing that we talk about, who's going to be collecting in the future. What does a younger generation of collectors, Sandra, mean for the winners of the concours? Could a 19 or 90s car win? Like, how does that evolve and impact?
Well, you're right. Younger cars, that aren't as old can be winning, and we have runners up to Best of Show. So, we have 200 cars on the field. There's maybe 28 classes. So you have to win your class to be eligible for Best of Show. And of those 28 cars, it usually boils down to 3 or 4 that are all really in contention for Best of Show. So we bring up those runner-up, the nominees for Best of Show. And in the last few years, we've had post-war cars. Last year we had preservation car that hadn't been restored that actually became our winner. But you're right, the breadth of the years of those cars is widening. And I think it is because of the younger collectors that have so much passion. I mean, they really want perfection in their cars. They persevere through the restoration process, which can take years. And they really want, I think they're great stewards because they want the cars to be right for the future. So they dig into the history and they make sure that when they restore the car, that they do right by it, that they show the way that it was really built in the day.
We're talking with Sandra Button, chairman of the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, joining us from Pebble Beach today. I am curious too about the theme this year. My understanding is that you guys are marking 75 years of Formula One racing. So talk to us about this theme, how you're going to be celebrating it, and why you chose to pick that theme.
Well, I think 75 years is a pretty amazing.
A big one.
It's about the same age as the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. But if you can think about, we're going to be able to see on Sunday the entire history of Formula One unfold before us. And we're also having a class of Grand Prix race cars that predated Formula One. So you're really going to be able to see the entire history of racing along the water at Pebble Beach a week from Sunday.
Is Brad Pitt going to be there? That's what we really all want to know.
That's a great question.
No, I'm just kidding.